Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's Shadowwraith and today I'm going to be going over my opinion on, well, probably my most competitive, looking at first looks, play company. And I'm going to go over everything pretty much. So, to jump straight in, we're going to start looking at the Death Guard army rules so we know which applies to everything. Okay, so of course we've got Disgustingly Resilience, which is -1 damage to a minimum of 1. So of course that doesn't help you with mortal wounds or 1 damage weapons, but it'll be very, very good for overcharged plasmas or power fists, things like that. A lot of 2 damage weapons, because there are a lot of 2 damage weapons in the meta at the moment because of the marine meta we're in. So it's absolutely fantastic, and I'm hoping Death Guard will probably shake up the meta because of this. Now we've got malicious volleys. Basically, if you're infantry, you're gonna if you're stationary, you get to rapid fire. You still get to rapid fire if you're within half range of your weapon that has rapid fire, and you get to always rapid fire as a Terminator no matter what. Fantastic rules. Makes us very deadly for shooting, because even a standard unit of 10 Plague Marines are going to be firing 20 shots a turn with their bolters if they've all got bolters, even if they've moved. Very devastating. Blightlord Terminators, it's 4 shots per man. Fantastic. With the amount of buffs you can stick on these guys for their shooting, there's a lot of bolter buffs, a lot of ways to make them plague weapons, and then play off of that, a lot of synergy. It can make them quite scary. Remorseless, you ignore all modifiers for your combat attrition tests. Awesome. And then Inexorable Advance. You counter stationary if you don't fall back or run, which works very nicely with the malicious volleys, and it does work together. You ignore all movement modifiers for moving, charging, and things like that. So charging through difficult terrain will no longer inflict the penalty to you for -2 to your charge range. You're always going to roll normally, as well as other stratagems that would shorten your charge range, like these strangle foot grenades or whatever the custodies have. That's a big one, which I've been hit with in the past. No longer will that work, which is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. As well as that, your vehicles will be able to shoot with no penalty at enemies within engagement range. So, moving on, the play company that I'm going to be running and testing out, that I think is probably one of the most competitive ones, is the Ferryman. Now, the Ferryman have a few abilities that I think make them very competitive. You've got On Droning Wings. So, you can pick one voted Virion unit to give them a +6 to their aura ability in the command phase, and it lasts until your next command phase. That's fantastic. As you can imagine, it's going to buff quite a lot of their ability. You can give it to your Plague Surgeon to give him an 8-inch aura, or no, 9-inch aura, sorry, for his 6+ Feel No Pain. You can give it to your Foul Blightspawn to give him a 9-inch aura to negate people's counting as charged, and that always fights first. As well as other things you can do. If you can think of an aura ability that goes on a voted Virion, you can stick this on them for 1 command point, which is incredibly powerful. Now, we've got the Warlord trait, the Contagion, which is the droning. Whilst an enemy is within your contagion range, you half their move. That is fantastic, because it will slow down a lot of the faster enemies. It will slow down things like bikers, because they're half move. So instead of moving 10 inches or whatever, they're only moving 5. 12 inches, they're moving 6. It's quite scary, and it can really, really, really slow them down to the point where you might have a chance of getting to the objectives either at the same time or before them, if you manage to get someone close enough to slow down their army. Then this is one of the main reasons why I put it so competitive, because I can see so many shenanigans playing off this. Then we've got their special relic, which is okay. It's a Ferryman Scythe. It's a kind of like the Man Reaper. It's +3 strength, -3 AP, 2 damage, -1 to hit though, so that's your big hit, your cleave, and then your scything attack is +1 strength, -1, 1 damage, but you get 3 attacks instead of 1 for per swing, which can be quite scary because a lot of characters have got 5 attacks. So you can be throwing out 15 attacks, and then you can stick things like the deadly pathogens on them. So you make 6s to hit to cause a mortal wound on top of damage. You can do a lot of silly things with this, and it's absolutely fantastic. I love it. Now, moving on, we have got relics. Okay, these are the 3 relics that I've picked that will probably help you out the most. So we've got the Fulgaris Helm, which adds 3 inches to your aura for a max of 12 inches. Again, stacked with the command point you get from the Ferryman, you can easily get a 12-inch aura with something like losing the Always Fights First bonus with the Foul Blight Spawn, as well as them not counting as charging, and this goes for anything that comes with charging. They simply do not count as having charged that turn, so no extra attacks, nothing like that. Unless we get an FAQ saying that's wrong, that's how it is written. Which you can imagine is extremely powerful, because it's a very charged meta at the moment, where you want to be getting your extra attacks on the charge in, along with Space Marines being very, very, very top at the moment. I'm not saying they're the best army, but they seem to be doing a lot of good work. Now, Tollkeeper, you have to put it on a talisman, so it's 6 inches. Okay, 6-inch aura. All range attacks will count as 2 hits for each natural roll of a 6 to hit. So you've got exploding 6s for natural rolls of 6s for your ranged attacks, which you can imagine is quite scary if you've got a unit of 5 or 10 of the Blightlord Terminators. So they're firing 40 shots for 10 of them, which is absolutely terrifying, with the possibility of exploding 6s. Now, this is a kind of a fun little extra. You can stick the Lord of Virulence within 6 inches of them, so that they're also natural rolls of 6s are counted as an additional -1 AP. So now you've got Stormbolters that are -1 AP and doing double shots on 6s, natural rolls. Pop this in with Tallyman, who I'll talk about in a minute. You can have them hitting on 2s and doing this. Now, Revolting Stench Vats. I put this in because I can imagine your army will be very good at slowing the enemy down on top of making them -1 toughness, on top of taking away all their charge bonuses. Because a lot of armies out there are extremely fast and faster than us, so there's a chance that you're probably going to get charged. If you've got a lot of counter charge measures, you're going to make your opponent think twice before charging your Death Guard, your Plague Marines, your Terminators, whatever. The Revolting Stench Vats does pretty much exactly what the Foul Blight Spawn does. It's a 6-inch aura, enemy loses, the Always Fights First, and don't count as charging. Extremely, extremely powerful, as you can imagine. We're going to talk about some of the stratagems that you can play. So, Plague Chosen is a very good stratagem. For 1 CP, you gain a Warlord trait for another character, and I do believe this counts for your contagions and things like that, because it is a Warlord trait still, 100%. So, that is fantastic, because imagine bringing something like Mortarion. He doesn't have to have the same Plague Company, because a lot of the abilities don't say Plague Company models are affected by this, and a lot of them are actually debuffs to the enemy. So, for example, we could have a Mortarion coming in with a Supreme Command attachment, and the most obvious choice for me would be to give him the Mortarion's Anvil one, which is a Glooming Bloat. The enemy unit cannot fire Overwatch or set to defend. Each time a model in that unit makes an attack, to hit roll and wound rolls cannot be rerolled. So you get rid of their rerolls, and he's always counting as having a 9-inch aura, which is fantastic. If things get thick and fast and you're stuck in the middle of it, you can have Mortarion there, taking away all their rerolls from captains and things like that, as well as having whatever other kind of contagions you've got. So the -1 toughness on top of the Ferryman's half movement. So it just makes it a massive pain for the enemy to do anything, and can be very, very scary for things like Smash Captains or the Chaplain on Bike, where you just remove all rerolls. Now we've got Champion of Disease. You can give another Bubonic Astartes a relic, which is fantastic, because I went over 3 relics earlier. So you can give someone the Fulgaris Helm, for example. You can give it to the Plague Surgeon to increase his 3-inch aura to a 6-inch aura, and you can have other ways of increasing the aura of your Flower Bite spawn, as if from the Plague Company's relic and stuff like that. Now, Flash Outbreak is fantastic, and this gives you a lot of versatility, and this is the reason why you want multiple contagions in your list. Select a unit with a contagion ability, and you can give them the contagion ability of another character that you've selected. So, you can give your Poxwalkers, for example, Mortarians no rerolls contagion, which is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, it's very scary because you can basically shoot things across the battlefield when you need to. It's in your command phase, but if you can preempt to like what's going to happen in your turn, then and your enemy's turn, you can really play some shenanigans. So you could have a footed bloat drone fly up the board, but in the command phase you can give him the half movement that your warlord has, which is actually really, really scary. On top of that, the contagions count as 1 round higher, so if it's turn 1, instead of being 1 inch, it's 3 inches. You can throw it on him at the start of your command phase and shoot him up and advance him, so he's shooting right up the board and slowing down a portion of the enemy's army. It can be very, very useful. You can have it on your deep striking terminators or things that arrive from reserve to then really slow your opponent down from the back lines. There's lots and lots of ways of doing this. If there's a fight over to the right flank and you need them to not re-roll their hits and wounds, you can stick it on a unit over there. It's really fantastic, a lot of versatility, and I love versatilities in lists, so it's going to look very, very good. And I think it'll play even better. And it's all for the low price of 2 command points. On top of that, your contagion range counts as 1 round higher. So if you're on turn 2, you take the turn 3 contagion range, or if you're turn 1, instead of being 1 inch, you've got a 3 inch contagion. Now onto characters that you can bring and that I suggest. So the Lord of Contagion, I know on the list it's you've got Mortarion smashed in between, but just imagine Mortarion's not there for a second and Mortarion's on top. But we'll talk about that Lord of Contagion. He's fantastic in close quarters, so he can really punch the enemy in the face if he needs to. He is extremely hard to kill with his 2-up save, 4+ invuln, and then his -1 to all damages, on top of other ways you can make him more survivable. Plus he's toughness 5. He's not easy to shake. And he's got a natural +3 to his contagions. So you can give him a contagion with the Flash Outbreak special rule, and he's not only got another contagion on top of his -1 toughness, it's also +3 to the range and a turn higher. So there's some good combos there. Now we've got Mortarion. You can pick another Plague Company's Warlord trait, which is fantastic because it's a separate attachment and he's got so many Warlord traits anyway. He is extremely hard to kill, to the point where people are calling out for a nerf. If they nerf him, I'll be most upset. I don't really see it happen. He might go up in points, but that's as high as I think it'll go, because compared to a lot of the other stuff that's out there, I don't think he's that bad. Looking at you, Nightbringer, Gazgul, things like that. He also comes with a bunch of the Warlord traits, which is actually extremely scary. He comes with Arch Contaminator, which kind of does what it used to. So you get to reroll all failed wound rolls if you attack with a plague weapon in close combat, and if you make a ranged attack with a plague weapon and the target unit is within 12 inches, you can reroll to wound rolls as well. So it's slight nerf because it used to be just reroll wound rolls with plague weapons, but now for shooting attacks they have to be within 12 inches, which, whatever, fine, I can deal with that. He's also got Revoltingly Resilient, which makes him extremely tough, giving him the old Disgusting Resilient 5 plus Shrug, so that's extremely good. And he's got Living Plague, so whilst an enemy unit is within 3 inches of this Warlord, the unit cannot be affected by aura abilities, excluding those that are psychic powers of units from your opposing army. So again, playing off a theme, we're taking away buffs from the enemy, so no captain rerolls or anything like that. If they get +1 attack for having someone nearby, they're not going to get that. It's very, very strong. On top of that, you can cast 3 psychic powers. Miasma Pestilence is a very good one to take, subtracting 1 from the enemy's hit rolls. as well as putrescent vitality, giving them +1 and strength and toughness, which can turn your Plague Marines into toughness 6 monsters. Or you can give him as well the Gift of Plagues, which increases one friendly Death Guard unit within 18 inches of him, 6 inches to the contagion abilities, which is pretty crazy, to a maximum of 12 inches. So extremely strong. You can have your contagions going off into big auras very early on in the game with him. One more little note for the Lord of Contagion before I move on again is you can teleport him. So he's very good to keep at pace with your Terminators if you decide to deep strike them in. Now, the Plague Surgeon is extremely good. You can have him near your Plague Marines, or I think better yet your Terminators, to give them a 6+ Feel No Pain for 3 inches. This can be increased with relics as well as command points, and on top of that, he's just a fantastic model, so he's definitely worth bringing. Imagine having -1 damage on top of being toughness 5, on top of having a 6+ chance of just shrugging it off. Now the Blight Spawn, pretty key in the list. He used to be top in every Death Guard list, not so much anymore, but I thought I could try and change that because he's got the 3-inch aura of you lose the always fight first and you lose all charge bonuses. On top of that, he's got a pretty solid flamer. It's been nerfed from 2d6 strength to just strength 7, 3 damage to only 2. We can live with that. A strength 7 flamer is nothing to be sniffed at when you're auto hitting. Plus you can give him pathogens to make him re-roll the amount of shots he gets. So he can be quite solid. On top of that, you can give him relics, you can give him command points to increase his aura abilities, so you can have this no always fighting first across your army pretty much. The Tallyman is very key to this army. You give 1 unit +1 to hit within 6 inches of them, which is fantastic. Cool. So your Plague Marines or your Terminators will be +1 to hit, and that's melee or shooting, so that's fantastic. On top of that, you want to bring him for the Tollkeeper, giving him a 6-inch aura to have exploding 6s for shooting. Very, very strong. On top of that, every time you spend a CP, you roll a 2d6 on a 7+, you regain a CP. Before, it used to be you had to roll a bang on 7. Now it's just a 7+, which makes him a lot more reliable. And he's definitely going to be in my lists. The last one, who you should be seeing at the bottom of this page, is the Malignant Plaguecaster. Okay, the Malignant Plaguecaster is required for most of your detachments unless you bring Chaos Sorcerers, because you can only have 1 Lord of the Death Guard or 1 Demon Prince per detachment, and the Demon Prince pretty much counts as a Lord of the Death Guard, so you can only bring 1, which is kind of restricting, but never mind. He's very good for buffing units with his psychic powers, and he can deal mortal wounds like no tomorrow. Each time he casts a psychic power and it goes, you roll a 7 or higher, you deal mortal wounds to enemies within a certain distance of him. I think it's like 3 inches. On top of that, you've got Plague Wind to deal more mortal wounds, and you've got other ways of nerfing your opponents like Gift of the Contagion or Gift of Contagion, which subtracts 1 from the strength of the models, which can be very scary when you're toughness 5 going against strength 3 models in combat. And Plague Marines wounding your normal Space Marines and wounding your Plague Marines on 5s anyway, so it's not so useful against them, but there are ways to use it. If you roll high enough, you can get rid of +1 strength and +1 attack on an 8+ to cast, which is much better. So yeah, very good. Now we've got the Photo Bloat Drone. He's fantastic with a Flesh Mower. Okay, he's chucking out 12 attacks. He's wounding most things on 2s because he's going to be strength 7. With a -1 toughness aura. On top of that, it's a plague weapon, so he's going to be re-rolling 1s. It's fast, 10-inch movement, fastest thing you really got for Death Guard. You can spend a command point to heroically intervene within 6 inches, so you can really get him into close combat if you need to, and have him to deter people from charging into certain things. On top of that, you can heal from your kills with another command point, which is like Blasphemous Gluttony or something like that, where you can heal per kill to a maximum of 3 per turn. Blightlord Terminators are fantastic. Good shooting with the new army rules. They're great in close combat. I love them with the axes because it brings them up to strength 6. and most things are going to be toughness 3 for the marine equivalents nearby you, so you're going to be winning them 2s, rerolling 1s, and they're fantastic at dropping down or moving up to an objective and sitting there not moving with a 2-up save, 4+ invulnerable save. If you've got a plague surgeon near them, they've got 6-up shrug. On top of that, the plague surgeon can heal them for D3 wounds. Death Shroud Terminators, fantastic in close combat. They can throw out a lot of attacks with their scythes to really break up hordes, or you can cleave to take down tougher things like vehicles or heroes. You can tie up the enemy and win because they've got so many attacks. On top of that, they're fantastic at holding objectives and they can teleport in. Poxwalkers. Poxwalkers are very cheap, 5 points a model. They've got objectives secured and they're fantastic for holding backline objectives. And they can screen quite nicely. Plague Marines. They can be mixed. So, you can give them either role really. You can have them be close combat with their bubonic axes, with plague knives, flails and great plague cleavers, and with some stratagems you can have damage over spill for your plague cleavers, so it's really good having these multiple damage weapons in your units. On top of that, all bolters work extremely well. We did get nerfed, so we can't take so many special weapons, but I think the bolter is fantastic. Hail of shots is never to be sniffed at, and they're very tough for what they are. 21 points a model, being toughness 5, 3+ save, with -1 to damage, 2 wounds apiece, are good at holding objectives. Malignant Plague Caster, I've already gone over. To summarise, this army, I think it works extremely well because it slows down the enemies, which is very good for getting ball control. You can share contagions to meet requirements, so it's very, very, very kind of flexible and gives you a lot of options, and you can put things where you need them to be. You've got objectives secured pretty much across the board, which is fantastic, apart from your heroes obviously. You can have lots of buffs and debuffs, and most of them are auras, and they can be rather wide, or you can have multiples of them, which is fantastic, which is what we're all about. We're going to be shutting down everything the enemy can throw at us, whether it's rerolls or ways that their characters can buff their units to their toughness. You can have a lot of fun with this. And you're also good in close combat and shooting, as well as doing what Death Guard does, which is sitting in the midfield, holding the objectives and not dying. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, do consider liking, and if you're feeling especially saintly today, do consider subscribing. But even if you don't do either of those things, I still hope you have an absolutely fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.